I get this. I get the shirt now.
Yeah.
The Sunnydale Razorbacks.
Exactly.
I did not pick up that they were Razorbacks.
This feels stupid.
It's like when you go to a concert and you're wearing
No, you're right.
the
you're
band's t-shirt.
You're right.
No.
No, you're right. Let's lose it.
A second shirt.
That's awesome.
You're right. It was stupid.
Oh.
This one's much better.
Just for the context for our audio-only listeners, Josh had a t-shirt. You know it's great audio when you can't see the physical joke?
I'm doing this for you guys. My goal here is to make you guys laugh.
Josh had a Sunnydale black t-shirt on, to which he took off and revealed a Slayer tank top under it.
It says Slayer with a wooden stake. I got a lot to say about these stakes, all right? I got a lot to say about a lot of things. We should start getting into it.
Wait.
Just the way that they could break them off so easily. Like, everything's a wooden stake.
Everything breaks into a perfect. It's just like in the movies where you're at a bar fight and you slam the wine bottle.
Perfect. Ready to
like
go.
a fighting object.
Perfect shanking tool.
So they're really just dime a dozen.
Easy to make.
Easy to make.
Yeah.
Well, if you really think about it, it's just a piece of wood.
Yeah, but there was one moment where she snapped off a table leg and just perfectly staked, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know who was teaching people how to stab, like the set choreographer, but very bad. There was just David. How do you pronounce his name? David Borneo.
We were just talking about this.
David Borneo, the wild man of Borneo.
Wait, how do you say it?
David Boreanaz.
Boreanaz. Welcome to Machete Order, the podcast about the shows that everybody still talks about, but nobody still watches. I'm S.J. Pederuti,
And I'm Maxine Philibong.
and our special guest,
Josh Burns.
This season, we're watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Come glory, glory.
What do you think? 5.1?
welcome back. We're here for season 2.
We're here for season 2, and it's the first time that Ashley gets to watch the episodes of Buffy that me and Josh picked for him.
This is my first Buffy episodes ever. Of
Yeah.
any type.
We all get to watch our baby bird learn to fly. It's exciting.
Yes.
Going into it, what were you expecting, and what do you feel taking away from it in the 3 episodes that you watched?
It's a lot campier.
Yeah.
I was actually not surprised at all at how campy it was, because I was like, oh yeah, this was on UPN 38, and like I remember it being on in like the afternoon. This almost reminded me of like a Disney afternoon cartoon show.
Yeah.
But with live action. Particularly, and the thing that I was maybe most surprised about was the vamp face that looks like the Jim Henson Muppet team
Yeah.
created it. I was like, where did that come from?
Reportedly, people would take like almost an hour or over an hour in some cases to be put into that makeup.
Yeah.
Kill me.
Yeah. It doesn't seem worth it.
I forget every time going back to it because they have the prosthetics and they have like the vampire teeth.
Yeah.
And how goofy and like they just have to lean into it. The voice is, they're clearly talking with a mouthful of plastic.
Yeah.
You know, the big bad of the season trying to be very intimidating, but clearly it's like, you know.
David Boreanaz, is that how you say his name? Is
There
that
you
what?
go. Well
Okay.
done.
David Boreanaz, he took 90 minutes to get into costume.
Really?
Yeah.
I will say that the show did seem to find itself a little bit more as it got towards the finale. Like the big scene where the Master and Buffy are fighting.
Now we're definitely getting into wrap-up thoughts. I think we should work our way through the episode.
No, I like the idea of summary of what we thought for the episodes and then going back into each
Yeah,
episode.
Josh, you're new to this, right?
Yeah. This is what we did last
I
season.
thought you were on my side
Did
about
you
the...
even listen to last season? You said you're a big fan.
Yes, this was something I was like, oh, writing this down. If I'm ever on this show, I'm going to bring this up.
All right, fine. As long as we're going to stay high level with it, I will say that I did a little bit of extra credit work, and I went and I rewatched the original movie. I conquered my
Yes.
fears. I did.
Yes.
I conquered my fears, and I watched the film after the pilot. And I got a bone to pick with you guys, because you said that the Buffy movie is not part of the lore of the television show.
I said there were elements from the movie that made it into the show, but the things that happened in the movie were not canon in the show.
There are things in the show that contradict things in the movie.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I don't think we're seeing any of that.
I was piqued by the fact that we come into the pilot and she's already a Slayer and she has this experience. And I was like, I wonder what the movie showed, and it was the origin story that I was expecting it
She
to
burned
be.
down the gym. It was full of asbestos.
Yeah. She also must have gone to a terrible high school in Los Angeles because somehow she's regressed, and she's like, she was a senior in the movie, and now she's like a sophomore, I guess.
She was a senior in the movie?
Yeah. It was,
Oh,
it
man.
was senior prom or whatever the dance was that they were going to. It was an interesting project. Like Joss Whedon, I don't know enough about him as a person, but the idea of I get wanting to tell a vampire story, and then I get the idea of wanting to do the Van Helsing story, but as a female. I've always found the concept of like the Vampire Slayer to be an interesting one. And yeah, you take it and you put it as a female, and then you just sprinkle in a little bit of high school drama, and now we have this iconic show.
But are you saying you feel the same way that I did? Is like Joss Whedon got a little bogged down in cheerleader routines in the movie. Isn't it like 3 minutes of just a cheer routine?
The opening is a cheer routine of the movie, yeah. And also, the girl who plays Buffy is by far the worst cheerleader, and yet she's front and center. That's how the movie starts. This is about the movie, but there's a ton of stars also in the movie. I did not realize.
Yep, Donald Sutherland.
Luke Perry.
Yep, Luke Perry.
Yeah, David Arquette. And there's a cameo from Ben Affleck in it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he's like one of the basketball players on the opposing team. When a vampire shows up to play basketball, which is there's some great moments in it.
Yeah, incredibly camp. And you haven't seen it, right?
No, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen
No.
it? Oh, I think you owe it to yourself.
Again, if you can like bad movies, and this is a really fun watch.
But it does keep with the like playfulness of the vampires in the world and how they interact in it. That is continuous throughout the show itself too.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously Joss Whedon writing both of them brings a certain level of continuity to it as well.
Yeah. So during the movie, you talked about seeing the history of the Slayer. Before the premiere of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the show, they ran this commercial called The History of the Slayer, which you got to see Slayers from 1625.
Yeah.
And then the commercial ends with being like, and it all restarted in 1997 or something like that.
Yeah.
So you got to see the origins of Slayer leading up to the first episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was a 2-hour premiere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that explains. Yeah, you guys left me on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, just in talking about extra credit work that we've all done, I misspoke last time that we were going to be watching the pilot. This is not the pilot. There was an unaired pilot that I went and watched for the first time. It's like a 23-minute. It's a lot of the same beats of the first actual episode. There's some recasts, like Willow and all of our favorite Jesse was recast, but it doesn't have any of the Master stuff, doesn't have any of the Angel stuff. So it's much more just like, here's a fun little, it's a good little watch.
Well, a lot of times projects will do that. They'll shoot like a condensed version of their pilot, and they'll use that and they'll shop it around to networks and say, hey, this is something, are you interested in it? It's easier than reading a script. And then the network will buy it and recast certain characters, and that's when they'll build it out a little bit more. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I'll say even in watching that pilot, which is just because I love how the show starts, I think they, same thing, really had the voices down and like really knew what the show was going to be.
Yeah.
It's really impressive for a project like that.
Okay, SJ.
Pilot time.
Pilot time.
Welcome to Hell's Mouth. Actually called Sunnydale, California, the fictitious town where Buffy, our young heroine, has moved to after being kicked out of her old high school in Los Angeles. The movie...
You wrote something this
I didn't really write it.
It sounded prepared, but he wasn't looking at anything.
I did have it. That was a good opening. I'm going to lose some wind.
It's the Hellmouth, not Hell's Mouth.
The Hellmouth, whatever. It's this place that she learns after her weird librarian friend Giles tells her. It sits on the nexus of a paranormal dimension. And that is where a lot of vampires like to hang out, which is bad news for Buffy because she's sort of a vampire slayer in retirement. She's very bummed when she comes and finds out that this town also has vampires. And then she is kind of reluctantly coerced into actually starting to fight them again because the vampires start showing up at her high school. Buffy is also very cute. Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's like, I think 19 when this thing started.
Yes.
Babyface. And so all of the cool girls like Cordelia love her. Love Cordelia too. Big fan of hers.
She only gets better.
Yeah. Cordelia is like the stuck-up girl who wants nothing to do with Willow, played by none other than Allison Hannigan, who has had the same face and has played the same character for 30 years.
Yes.
Impressive. So Willow's a nerd. She also has 2 guy friends, Xander, who's very smitten with her and has a weird Jim Carrey-like face.
Her being Buffy.
Buffy, yes. There's a whole romance that is developing here. And Jesse, that's Xander's friend. Unfortunately, Jesse is not long for the human world, and he and Willow are kind of taken hostage by some vampires. Buffy has to slay the vampires after Giles tells her about how she is the Slayer and he's the Watcher, which is a weird name for a character. Apparently he just likes to watch.
Did you catch what the Watcher? Okay, finish your summary, and then we'll go into what things
We'll
mean.
do a little beat by beat.
So there's a big school dance that's happening simultaneous with this big vampire event called the Harvest, which is where the Master, and everybody knows in vampire lore there's like one head vampire who's made all of the other vampires. He is waiting inside of this like prison in Hell's Mouth little dungeon area of hell, and he can't get out until he is freed by sucking the life out of all of these other humans that his vampire minions, like, they vamp them. So they're going to use the Harvest to do this, and then they show up at the dance, and Buffy defeats all the vampires, except then she gets thrown into a coffin, and what was the vampire's name? Luke? There's like that one bad vampire.
The lead vampire.
The lead vampire.
The lead henchman.
The lead
of
henchman.
The Master.
Yeah.
Luke.
He like throws her down into a coffin, and that is where it was like a cliffhanger because he's about to bite her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what happens. And I did not break protocol out of respect for the show and watch the next episode, but I really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
We chose only the first episode just because we wanted to get more of a lay of the land.
Yes.
Because I think what happens is you know who the Master is now. You know who all the characters are and their roles. But you called Giles the weird librarian. Did you understand what a Watcher is?
I guess a Watcher is a guy who like trains the vampires and advises them. Trains the vampire slayers and watches them. And I don't know what he's watching. I mean, he's kind of like just hanging out, telling her what to do and who to kill.
There's going to be more world building around the Watcher and his whole role and everything like that. It's really similar to what it was in the movie, but in the movie, it's really implied that there is just the one Watcher and the one Slayer. I feel like early on in the show, it's hinting at there being a wider universe to that. I think my issue is that Hell's Mouth sounds like a town in Rhode Island.
Hell's Mouth?
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you keep saying that. I'm like, is he talking about his hometown?
Going to Hell's Mouth, Rhode Island. Yeah.
I'd hang out there.
It's his Rhode Island accent makes everything.
Yeah.
Did I
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you like the comedy of this first episode?
Yeah, no, there's specific things that I was like noting throughout it.
How about that first scene where misdirection of you thinking that like, oh, this guy is leading an innocent girl and then he's going to be a vampire.
He's the vampire.
It's the vampire.
I got to tell you, the freaking
The makeup.
the vamp face thing, I was like, what is this? She turned into like a weird demented Miss Piggy. And I was like, not so into it. Vampires should be sexy. I think that should be one of the consistent
think?
pieces of vampire lore. Yes.
Have you seen the new
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu?
No, I haven't.
Knew it was like 2 years ago.
No, I think it was last year. People were saying he's pretty sexy, but he is an ugly, ugly vampire. I think vampires should be, they're like hundreds of years old.
Yeah, but
right?
they're immortal, so they're supposed to still look good.
The only hot vampire is Angel.
Ever? We going outside of just the Buffy thing, or are we talking just like the vampires themselves? The chick is cute.
The chick, Darla?
Darla.
The
yeah.
chick?
The chick. The chick vampire. There's only one female vampire in this. The Vampress.
I like having room for both. I love, it's the same with werewolves. I love, werewolves where it's not just like a hairy guy, like the Teen Wolf kind of thing, but instead like a American Werewolf in London thing where it's like a different kind of monster.
Yeah.
I love the master vampire, not the master in this show, but the master vampire who's like real suave and like,
and
sexy
seductive.
and like seductive, everything like
Yes.
that. Then I also love the monster vampire like we see in this show where they have like the beast face situation going on.
Yeah.
I like both.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their own taste. That's the nice thing about these monster lore types of stories is there's so many different ways of interpreting them. Yeah. One thing that I found strange to interpret was there was a scene where Buffy was talking about a heartthrob. She was, I think, bonding with Cordelia.
Right.
And they talked about how James Spader was the choice.
Yeah.
Me and Josh were talking about this, and I have no idea who that is.
What?
I have zero idea who that is.
No, you know who that is.
If you looked up his face, you'd be like,
Hold
I've
on.
seen him in
Have you seen The Avengers?
I'm going to
The
say
Age of
something.
Ultron?
I need to say something controversial, and no one can hate me, either our listeners or you two. I hate Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the safest time you could ever say.
That being said, did you see The Age of Ultron?
Nope.
Okay. You should see it.
For me, I recognize him from Stargate. You ever watch Stargate SG-1?
Oh,
No.
yeah, this dude.
Yeah, that dude. Tiny little mouth.
I watched Boston Legal, and
Oh, yeah, another. Okay.
yeah, he was on Boston Legal. He was great. He's Robert California from The Office.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's also on what was that NBC movie where he plays like a spy and there's a girl in it?
Blacklist?
The Blacklist. That was his more recent thing.
Yeah.
And then he was the voice of Ultron, which was a great casting choice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
hate the Avengers, but that character was great.
Mhm.
They did a really good job, actually, with most of the villains in the Avengers storyline. Anyway,
Total heartthrob.
Heartthrob? And then I looked up young James Spader, and he kind of did have a good look. He had a nice head of hair. He had a good jawline.
Yeah, looking at a young picture of him.
Yeah, he was sexy.
He looks like Donald Trump, the young
Whoa.
Trump.
All right.
I don't know.
I see his face.
Come
everywhere.
on. This is not a political podcast. This is where we get away from all of that.
Oh, it's gonna be.
In terms of larger and deeper themes, I didn't pick much up around what this pilot was trying to tell us. It was interesting, though. There's a line where she talks about, there were some great, like, little one-liners, and Cordelia had most of them. I don't want to interrupt your downward mobility, she says, as Buffy is talking to Willow. That was a good one. There's just some campy things, like Buffy sees a vampire, and she's like, oh, great. Like, oh, darn.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, as far as themes that are gonna like be carried forward in the show, the whole her first conversation with Giles are just like, I don't want to be the Slayer. I left that behind. I did some slaying. I'm done. It's this past. And she's going to consistently want to just live a normal life and be frustrated with having to be the Slayer. That's going to come back a bunch.
Yeah, I think for themes of I was talking about before when we were recording the first episode of this, I was talking about Buffy and feminism and sociology and stuff like that. I don't think we get into that until very later on in the seasons.
Yeah.
I think the point of this episode was just to give a higher view of everything. And I think it is just showing how fun a TV show can be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And still going to dive into the deeper stuff later. But I think for this, just we're going to have fun first and then we're going to make you think.
Yeah. That being said, there was a line that Buffy says where she asks, I think, Giles, do you want to hear my philosophy? And then she's talking about her perspective on vampires. But I always like to think sometimes about these lines not being said by the character, but being written by the screenwriter. And writing, do you want to hear my philosophy as a question in a pilot is a very cool way of saying in a little sleight of hand that I'm going to tell you about my view of society and the world and coming of age. And a lot of the things, like I saw some in the Angel episode that do give you a sense of deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about the one-liners. One of the jokes that really stands out to me every time and always makes me laugh is when they are, it's an opening scene where these two girls are walking into the locker room and they're talking about the new girl, Buffy, and they say, hey, what kind of a name is that anyway? Buffy. And then the girl is walking past, what I'm talking about? She's like, hey, Aphrodisia. Oh, hey. And then it's you might not catch it, but a few scenes later, they're talking about the two girls who ran into or maybe this is in the pilot. The other girl's name is Aura. It's just because there's so many off-the-wall names in this show. It's so funny to me.
I think the one-liners are really where the Slayer slang comes from because it's mostly Xander and Buffy who, we were talking about this in the first episode too, where they're walk much, talk much.
Yeah.
Those are just one-liners that people just started saying after. You might hear something that you've said before or something you've written before. So keep paying attention.
He nails the teenage girl, high school voice and dialect and all that. I
Right?
think that is all very natural.
I agree.
And you don't really think twice about this being written by a guy. And I don't know how old he was when he was writing this, but not exactly the voice that you would expect.
Yeah, this one was written by Joss Whedon, directed by Charles Martin Smith. We'll get into Joss Whedon's directing later. What did you think of the club, The Bronze?
Interesting name for a club. Also, high schoolers at a club. There's that weird thing, but they were doing that in the 90s. High school scenes would regularly take place at clubs and in very adult scenes and situations. 90210 does that as well.
There used to be an 18 club when I was in high school on the main street in Middletown, Connecticut. It did not last very long. When you were a high school senior, that was the place to go.
Yeah.
And it's it shut down not long after I graduated. I never went to it, but it's why the fuck would you want to go there?
If
That
you're not
sounds
18,
awful.
if you're 18, yeah, 100% that's where you want to go. If you're not,
These people are sober in a club.
mm-hmm.
In the show, they don't show them drinking at that club.
No.
They're just drinking what? A Diet Coke?
But they're in like this bar situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the music that's always playing at the Bronze is consistently, I mean, that very formative for me. The band playing in the first episode is a band called Sprung Monkey, and great name. And I love that music so much. Later on, Four Star Mary is another band that really stands out. You get some Amy Mann in there. Sometimes it's like the Smiths playing, just like a vibe that I love so much.
I did notice that the music of the band, like their choice of music in the Bronze was good. At one point I was like, yeah, this is a good song. And the 90s, I think about all media production in the 90s as being very overproduced from a music standpoint. There was music running through almost the entire production, whether it was a 3-hour film or it was a 30-minute sitcom. A lot of music, a lot of over the top. And Buffy actually really isn't like that. For as campy as it is from a visual perspective and from a dialogue perspective, they actually played the music pretty straight. And I almost think that's a disservice to the overall show.
Well, the music is always diegetic, you know? It's like when there's music going on in the show that isn't just like the orchestra kind of stuff, or like, you know, horror music stings, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always like they're at a party, a house party, or they're at the club.
Yeah, those samples are great.
Yeah.
But the background orchestra music, I would have thought would be a little bit more like hit you over the head with it, but it's actually pretty subtle. Like the scary moments, they don't play it up the way that you would expect a film or a television show in the 90s to play that music section. They actually play it a lot more like you would have heard it in more recent times, like 2010s, 2020s, I would say. It's interesting. Whoever scored the music, I think, was very forward thinking with how he thought about creating mood.
Because I also think the show is so campy that if they made the music just as
Might be
campy, it would have
too
been
campy.
way over the top and
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to take it even a little bit seriously.
Yeah, it is. This show is a good example of what a 90s sort of teenager fantasy show was like. I'm trying to think of other shows like this was a big thing that was happening, but I do think it's a good 90s show. Like you
Yeah.
get a lot of what the 90s was about.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's one of the reasons that I love this show so much. Is it really, if you missed the 90s, then this is a great primer.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What did you think about Xander and Willow's relationship as best friends?
Yeah, so it took me like 3 episodes to realize there was this like love triangle
Oh my God.
going on.
Okay. I keep going. I feel very strongly about this.
Really?
We'll get into the next episode, but I feel so strongly about Xander and Willow. What did you think of them?
I didn't really get to see a ton of. I was like, wait, I think Willow's really into Xander, but Xander seems not into her. But I think only seeing 3 episodes of it, like it literally took me until he's like, and of course I'm dense about stuff like this, but it took me a while to realize, oh, like Willow's in love with him. He doesn't love her back. There is a good moment that I want to get to later about what I think Willow does. And I thought this is why I think Max likes this show so much, because it set what I thought was a good example of how a woman should engage in a certain situation, which, again, don't want to go too far ahead. But
Yeah.
And I'll say, Max, I am curious if, like, what opinion he will form of the characters in their relationships just from what we show him.
Okay.
Okay? I
I
know how
feel-
you feel
I
about
feel-
Xander,
So strongly.
and we'll
about
see if, you know, which one of us is going to take the yoke.
to see where these feelings are going.
Closing thoughts about this episode.
Solid pilot, moved along, introduced the right characters. Library is a weird place. The set design was a little strange. Nobody seemed to be in the library ever, except for like vampires. And whenever important dialogue was having to happen, it was like that. But no, I mean, I was a little bummed again, not to see how she got out of the jam, but I figured
Yeah.
it couldn't have been very important if I was not allowed to go on to episode 2, and instead we had to go into episode 7.
Yeah.
Right.
Big jump. The library thing is very funny. Like, you can tell there's a moment where Buffy and Giles are just having an open conversation, loudly yelling at each other about the Slayer stuff, because they're just assuming at the time no one's going to be in the
No
library.
one's in the library.
It's like a library like that?
No one in this school reads. I don't think anyone in this school is literate and goes to classes. Also, every time they walk out of the class, they're always like, oh, guys, I hated that class. Does anyone like
Yes.
school? Does-
They do come out with that. Joss Whedon, so I looked it up. He was about 34 when this was made. So not a guy with maybe perfect recollection of how all of high school dialogue went, but maybe somebody who just really studied high school girls.
That's evident. There were some production notes that I had written down to just how unfun it seemed to work with them. Certain scenes that were forced to be reshot, threats of reshooting a third time because of actors not appreciating their portrayal in certain ways. Just doesn't seem like a great guy to work with.
Yeah. He had a lot of latitude in Hollywood in his day. I will say that.
Yeah. So we jump to episode 7,
Yes.
Angel. This is my turn for a summary.
Did you want to cover any of the little details of what happened between now and then? I know that's not necessary.
No, let's go into episode 7.
Okay.
And then I will complain about the stuff that I had to fill in the blanks for myself.
Okay. So episode 7, Angel. You met Angel
I did.
briefly
Yeah.
in episode 1. Yes?
Yeah.
So this episode really, expands on who Angel is as a person and Buffy and Angel's relationship. So this episode came out 2 years before the series Angel came out. So this episode was 1997. Angel came out in 1999. This is an episode that really shows, how strong their feelings are for each other. But while this is going on, Buffy is in love with Angel. Angel loves Buffy. Xander also loves Buffy. Willow loves Xander. Josh said they couldn't share my opinion about this. I hate it so much.
Okay, wait, are we going to get into the episode recap?
We're getting into episode recap right now. Anyways, Master wants to kill Buffy.
Yep.
Sure. So the Master sends in the 3, described as strong warrior vampires by Giles, to kill Buffy. Buffy is attacked by them after leaving the club, but Angel steps in, fights one off. Buffy kills the other 2. And I love moments like these because even though, Angel comes in and helps with the slayage, Buffy's still the one to
Yes.
kill all of them.
A female heroine should actually be the hero and
Right.
not get saved by a man,
Yeah.
which is a huge potential problem if you're writing.
Angel is the one who walks away with a wound that needs tend.
Yes.
That's right. He gets, slashed.
Yeah, in the ribs.
Yeah. So Angel is wounded, which means Buffy has to invite him over.
Oh.
She walks into the house. Her mom is there. Buffy's mom is so cool throughout this whole show.
Oh,
She
I
brings
disagree
in
so much.
a strange man. She's never met him. It's just like, okay, I'm going to bed. You guys can, you can leave. She knows she's not going to leave.
When she went to bed, I was like, wow, my mother would never have done that.
Well, no, he played it so well. She said, oh, bye, Angel, goodbye. Slammed the door, and then they just walked upstairs. Foolproof.
Her mom knew exactly what's going to happen.
I'm having flashbacks of my own childhood teenage interactions with my parents whenever there was a girl involved. No.
My mom was just like, get out.
And this is,
Be like,
their house clearly has brick walls with crazy insulation between that they can't hear any of what's going on in the other room.
anyways,
I have such trauma with this, but let's move on.
it's crazy. Okay. Angel stays over. He's a gentleman. He sleeps on the floor. Oh my God. So the next day, Giles is like, the 3, really powerful. You got to train. You got to learn some weapons. Let's go. So Buffy learns some weapons. She does a crossbow. She's fighting off Giles. It's crazy. I think this is where you get to see how strong Buffy is.
There's a hint in the first episode.
Yeah.
Did you get that she has super strength?
We'll get to that. No, I did not.
Okay.
Until I saw her do a move at the end, and I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? Yeah.
She beats the shit out of Giles. It's crazy. Buffy goes home. Angel is still staying there. They have this little moment. He's like, I can't do this. I'm so much older than you. But they kiss and doesn't say how much older he is, but he does reveal that he's a vampire. And Buffy's like, oh, so you are
He doesn't
pretty
just
old.
reveal it. Doesn't he get hungry for a second
Yeah.
and just it overcomes him? Yeah.
We'll go into why that happens.
Spoiler alert, by the way. Yes. Angel is a vampire.
He's kind of just like a weirdo who hides everywhere.
Yeah. He's clearly not a student.
No.
He's also 27, David Boreanaz,
Yeah.
when he made this. So, yeah, he was older in all sorts of different ways.
Well, there's that joke when Buffy's mom comes up and she's like, oh, who is this? It's like, oh, he's my friend from school. College.
Yeah.
Okay. Angel.
Yeah, Angel gets vamp face,
Yeah.
And he runs away.
jumps out the window.
Xander's jealous. This is pretty obvious.
Xander is zealous. Oh my God.
This is when I was like, maybe he has a thing or maybe he just doesn't like him. I don't know. It's not that deep.
Cuts to, okay, so I don't know if they set this in the pilot, but the gang of Willow, Xander, Giles, and Buffy are referred to as the Scooby Gang.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that too, that we didn't cover that. They don't never say it in the show, the
Yeah.
episodes that we watch. But yeah, they're called the Scooby Gang.
By the fans and in the Reddits and things
Yeah,
like that.
and in the show.
Okay.
I think what happened is fans started saying it and the show's kind of picked it up.
Hmm.
There's a lot of fan service that happens in the show.
I was a little bummed I didn't really get to understand how Xander and Willow became part of this hunting party. So That was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They just are all in on it now. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess there's
Yeah.
like a little group. And this makes sense. This is how you advance plot in an interesting way. So,
Yeah. So the next day they're researching and they find out that Angel is actually 240 years old, but what was he, in Ireland before? Came to the U.S., hasn't killed anyone since. So Willow makes a claim, maybe he's a good vampire. Cut to Angel going back in his bunker, his dungeon or whatever.
Apartment.
No, he's not in an apartment.
It's supposed to be an apartment. They just call it an
All
apartment.
the lights are off.
Uh-huh.
That looks like it's in
well, he's a vampire. He
basement.
can't be
Oh,
outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
90s was huge for like conceptual male living spaces where it's like, oh, he's in like a loft and it's like in a factory that's like abandoned. It's like, no, they just call it an apartment.
And black and dark colors were all the rage in the 90s too, right? It was sort of like the end
Yeah.
of the 80s. This is 97. So
Mhm.
you were doing
Yeah.
a lot of like black leather. It lent itself well to
Yeah.
vampire stories.
Yeah. I guess I don't know because this came out like a couple months before I was born.
Yeah. You never got to really experience the 90s,
No, I didn't.
hence the show.
Back at Angel's apartment, Darla shows up.
Yeah.
And they used to have like a little thing together, but then Darla's like, you think you're one of them, but you're not. Cuts to Buffy and Willow studying. They're finally studying this show. They're finally doing something school related. All that happens where things that are school related is that they need to advance a plot. Anyways,
Oh, we cut all the school episodes. There's so much school.
who cares?
I agree. We cut it.
Yeah.
Buffy's unable to focus because of Angel. Willow talks about her crush on Xander.
Yeah.
I hate it. Anyways, Darla shows up at Buffy's house. Her mom invites her in, which you should never invite a vampire in.
Nope.
She didn't know.
Yep. I love that rule about vampire lore
Me
too.
too.
They
Yeah.
have to be invited in.
Darla attacks Buffy's mom, Joyce. Angel shows up, but can't bring himself to also hurt Joyce.
He was getting pretty close
He
there.
was getting pretty close.
Because that's his whole thing, is that he won't feed on humans. He's got
Yeah.
blood bags in the fridge.
Yep.
He's a good vampire.
Yeah.
And then Darla throws Joyce into his arms, and he gets pretty close.
Right. Right before Buffy catches him
Yeah.
and thinks that Angel is attacking her.
Classic mix-up.
And then Buffy throws him out of the fucking
Yeah.
house.
Through
This
the
is-
window.
Through the window. It's crazy. This is where you get to see Buffy's strength again. She picks up a 27-year-old kind of buff man and just like throws him out the window.
He's pretty buff. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a full-grown man.
Yeah.
She just throws. No regard for the repairs. That's going to be an expensive window to fix. No, she doesn't care. She's pissed. She is heartbroken on a
So
number
mad.
of levels.
Yes. So Buffy's preparing to hunt him. Joyce is in the hospital. Doesn't really matter. Buffy prepares to hunt him. Okay, so we're at the Bronze.
So Buffy and Angel are fighting.
They're fighting. Buffy says he hates Angel, but can't kill him. Angel also reveals that he's a good vampire because his soul was restored.
But he in the show says, I killed a Romani girl. And he says what the tribe or clan that she was a part of. He brutally killed a young girl and her family cursed
And they
him
restored his soul.
so that he would have to live with the guilt of what a horrible monster he had been this whole time.
Yeah. It's a really cool, like, plot twist thing. Like, I can see why you would build an entire show around this character, because that is an interesting curse to be given. You know,
Yeah.
you're living this life because in the lore, the vampire has no soul. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you can remember and feel the things about what you
Yeah.
did. And so now he won't kill humans anymore. He's been
No.
living his life just apparently really lonely, I guess. Yeah.
Can't be out in the daylight, is still tempted to
Not
hurt
part
humans.
of either world.
Yeah,
Yes. Can't we all relate?
I can. I'm popular, but that sucks, man.
Yeah, I have friends. That sucks, Angel. Have you tried having friends
Did you call
before?
him lame, Joel?
I know.
Okay.
That's too mean.
You got a new nickname.
That's brutal.
All right.
That guy doesn't have it hard enough.
Yeah, right. Wrap this up because we still have
Okay.
to talk about it.
Yeah, how this wraps up is really good.
Final fight between Buffy and Darla. Angel stabs Darla and she fucking becomes dust.
That's how the vampires die in this world. If you get stabbed, well, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the realities of here.
Because it's sometimes if they're holding something that's important to the plot, that won't turn to dust. But otherwise, all their clothes, everything that's in their pockets,
Yeah.
everything turns to dust.
Yeah. But anyway, Darla bites the dust.
Yeah, Angel kills Darla, which
Wait,
No, we don't have the sound bar.
I think it's good for us to not have the sound bar.
I would have liked the rim job right there.
the what?
No, that's what it was called in the
Called?
sound bar.
What?
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't
Oh
know,
my god!
No, I got that in the.
we're gonna have to get to some drummers and consult with them. If
It's
you're
a
a
rim
drummer and you're
shot.
listening to the show,
No,
I'm a drummer and I'm listening to the show. It's a rim shot. A rim job is something else.
No, it's a rim shot.
All right,
What is
whatever.
wrong with you two? What kind of show is this?
Well, I would have liked a rim shot.
Esther had something else in his mind.
Listen, I mean, I just felt like it was a witty moment. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rim job.
Anyways, final fight between Buffy and Dorothy is dust. The Master is pissed. Angel shows up to club again. They say they can't be anything. They kiss again. Angel, out of there.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. That scene is so sweet where they kiss.
We're 51 minutes in, Josh.
She says
going.
it hurts. He agrees it hurts and then pulls away, and it's because she was wearing a cross and it burned on his chest.
Okay, so that was my first question.
Because they were saying, like, oh, it emotionally hurts. No, it's actually burned. Oh, it's both.
Okay, so that was my first question. Let's get into some opinion and analysis. So I was wondering, I was like, where the hell did this scar come from? It makes sense now. Okay, cool. That's good.
First episode, right? That he gives her the
Line
cross.
of the episode. This is exactly what happens when you sign those free trade agreements. Cordelia. It's a throwaway line, but it was so good because this was 97. This was, Trump just ripped up all the NAFTA agreements. This is just what they were all talking about. And there's just this one line as Cordelia's walking past and she approaches another girl wearing the same dress. And she's like, is this a knockoff? It is a knockoff. This is exactly what happens when you sign those free trade agreements.
You know what's a fun fact about that episode is that her dress was actually the designer version of that dress, and the other dress was actually the knockoff version of it.
What a great look. See
Wow,
this?
I didn't read that.
That is great trivia paired with my great observation. This is good podcasting. All right.
I'm free for anything. Say something else with me. Go on.
Yeah, didn't know how Angel had gotten the cross. There's also the apprentice, this child who's living
The
with
anointed.
The anointed. Didn't get any of that. I was like, okay, now we have this.
So you just skipped the recap at the beginning of the show, huh?
Well, no, I watched the recap, but you're just like, okay, now there's this like little adorable boy who's
And
like
there's a
hanging out
reason
with
that
the
we're skipping
master.
it. It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't seem to.
Nope, he's just in cahoots with the Master. That's kind of all you need
He
to
has
know.
like one significant role to play, as far as I can tell, at the end, which we'll get to in the pilot. He's like, come with me. Will you help me?
She's like, save it.
I already know where I'm going. Literally a useless character, apparently.
Yeah, and that'll be handled in a really funny way.
I like the idea of them like grooming. I love watching like a innocent person get corrupted. I think that's a wonderful story element to bring.
Well, it's evident from the beginning when he is like, brought into the vampire fold is that like, oh, he's the big bad evil. Like, you think the Master is bad. It's really the Master is setting up the anointed one who's going to bring about the apocalypse.
But you don't see that.
No.
I'm just kind of now with this character, the anointed.
The anointed one is the one who's like, oh, never mind.
See, you have more deeper knowledge than I do.
I was going to say in the Angel episode that the anointed one is the one who says, kill the three who failed, to kill the Slayer.
Yeah, and then
it
they
was
kill
not the anointed one. It was the Master who makes Darla kill her.
It sure was.
Yeah.
You'll find that there's a lot of characters in the show that end up, they don't matter.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and skip them, but sometimes they might claw their way in a little bit.
You'll get bits and pieces. If you feel like you're not getting the whole picture about something, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What we were saying last episode is that they really did not know how many seasons of the show they were going to get. For example, this first season, I would say comes to a conclusion that feels like, okay, they don't know that they're ever going to get another season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of these threads that they're like, the writers are putting in there is like, is this going to pay off? Who's to say?
Some good chemistry and like a lot of heavy breathing romance between Buffy and Angel. I thought,
Yeah.
this kid's got a sexy vibe. I get why people, but the idea of her being a high schooler, I don't know. I found it weird because David Boreanaz he looks very old. He is 27. You don't exactly know how old he's supposed to be, but it seemed like very adult feelings.
At least like 260 years old.
My big perspective on vampires is that I'd rather be the vampire.
Yeah.
I would if the vampires were real, if there are any vampires listening to
Honestly,
this,
I'll take the dark.
I will go and I will be a vampire.
Have you guys seen Sinners?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, we saw it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had this whole thing about vampires are kind of cool, and they're very cool in Sinners. And this is why I don't like being an ugly vampire, though, because for any vampires that are listening, if becoming a vampire means I have to become ugly and I get this like weird vamp face, not interested. Don't fight me.
What if you can turn it on and off?
I don't know.
Okay, I
just
don't
want
even want the
sexy
option.
fangs.
I don't want to like lose my composure and
Yeah.
not be hot as hell.
I did not sign up to become a werewolf vampire. I just want to be a vampire.
So my favorite explanation of the relationship age difference thing that I choose to fight my mind into believing is that when vampires stop aging, they also kind of mentally stop aging. Because the idea of somebody who is 240 years old and has been aging that whole time, like having all these life experiences and everything like that, that's horrifying to think of being with a high school girl.
But what do you think about Angel has a conscience and he remembers everything that's happened to him?
I said I choose to not believe
Okay.
it, and you are making that tough
Well,
for me.
here's something that I don't think of it as Angel is 27 and she's 17 and he's being creepy with her. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar was 19 playing a younger character.
Yeah.
I choose to believe that David Boreanaz is like 19 in the show, and
Right.
he's with a girl who's 17, and that's a lot less weird for me. This was the age where when you were casting high school girls were being cast at like 18, 19, 20 years old. I think the Power Rangers crew was supposed to be in high school, and the Red Power Ranger, I think, legit was 30. This happened a lot. So yeah, I think you have to understand that about the 90s, because now when they're shooting like the HBO show with the girl, that's all the girls, like Sydney Sweeney was in it, and
Euphoria?
yes.
Crazy to bring up Euphoria.
Well, those girls I think cast as high schoolers, I'm pretty sure they were pretty damn close to being in like 17, 18. I don't know. How old was Sydney Sweeney when they cast Euphoria?
No, in Euphoria, they're like fully adults.
Playing high
characters.
schoolers.
Yeah, fully adults playing high schoolers, because I think they do some like insane things in that show. They didn't want to cast anyone. Yeah, they didn't want to cast anyone that even looked remotely like a high schooler.
We'll get into the next episode.
Sure.
Season 1, Episode 12, Prophecy Girl, aired June 2nd, 1997, written and directed by Joss Whedon, his writing and directing at the same time debut. It's the spring fling at Sunnydale High. Giles learns of a prophecy which tells of the Slayer dying at the hands of the Master. I love the nouns in this show. The Slayer, the Three, the Master,
The Watcher.
the Watcher. There's so much of that.
The podcast.
Xander confesses his feelings for Buffy and is way uncool about her not reciprocating.
God, I fucking hate you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Talk about your feelings on Xander.
I don't think there's any use in hiding my feelings since I wear it on my sleeve. I hate Xander. I hate Xander so much. I have never hated a character in a show like I hate Xander. His face pisses me off. Every time he speaks, he pisses me off. Every time he looks in anyone's direction, he pisses me off. You can say whatever you want about him. I want you to form your own opinion.
I do have an opinion on Xander, but I want to hear Josh's opinion.
Would I hang out with Xander? Probably not. Am I entertained by him on the screen? Yeah, I think he gives a really charismatic performance. I think he delivers good jokes. I think in this episode specifically, it feels real bad defending him because he is a monster. But I knew guys like him in high school. I knew people who did exactly what he did and acted exactly the way he did. It's such a well-observed character portrayal.
And I hate it.
You can hate a character, but the character can still be very good, right? We get that all the time in television, especially as nowadays.
I can hate a character.
I get why you would put a male friend into the mix when you're telling the story. And yeah, him being in love with her and Willow being in love with him and all this like love chasing that's happening, it makes for content. But I get why also you hate him, because he kind of is a lame character. And yeah, like I thought his reaction to when Buffy rebukes him was very interesting. Like you said, not cool. And that was also, I think, pretty typical, especially of, how those scenarios would play out at the time. Yeah, I don't think he adds much. And I also don't like his face. But yeah, okay, so he's rebuffed. What else happened?
Starts off, Xander is practicing asking Buffy out while Giles is reading something, reads that the Slayer will die. It's implied that he reads that the Slayer will die. There's a big earthquake. The Master, this is a good joke that I like. The Master cuts to the Master underground, who's like, yeah, and like has his whole spiel about glory and all that. And like, this will be mine. And then like stops for a second, looks at the Anointed One and is like, what do you think, 5.1?
Yeah. I like that.
How funny. I thought this, I don't know if this is just like an in-media thing and earthquakes are not as prevalent as they seem in Southern California, but for there to be a prophecy that's tied to, like, I feel like I wouldn't be freaking out if they happen all the time like they seem to.
No. That prophecies, they've really gone out of vogue.
Earthquakes?
Prophecies.
Oh.
The prophecy says. This whole episode is based around the prophecy.
What do you think this episode's called?
Prophecy Girl.
But yeah, Xander asks Buffy out and she, says, I really think of you as a friend and I don't want to ruin that. He's not taking it well. This scene always gives me like a panic attack. Like my BPMs go crazy. She responds the way she would as a friend who just doesn't think of him that way. And he responds like, that's not fair. You have to try. I'd pull out a gun if I were in that scene. Either one of them. Just kidding.
But the feeling of like an obligation to try to be romantic with somebody after they tell you, I'm only platonically interested in you. That was weird. Yeah.
I have been on both sides of this, is why maybe I just feel for
It's
it.
also like very privileged white man to be like, no, you owe it to me to try to have feelings
Yeah.
for me. Well, then again, who wrote the show?
What do you think of Jenny Calendar, the girl who walks into the library to talk to Giles?
Oh, yeah.
Because you didn't get to see the history with her.
Yeah, all of a sudden she shows up and she looks like a vaguely famous actress now, but she's like Giles' girlfriend. And somehow she becomes kind of into this whole thing too. Giles is an interesting character. This guy has this like British accent and he works in a library that nobody goes in and he just pretty much obsesses over vampire stuff.
Can I say something? I used to have a giant crush on Giles.
What?
He's such a cutie with those glasses.
They're crazy. He's hot as hell.
Yeah, Giles is hot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, I thought it was interesting. He was like, he's a very nice man. He's like the Niles of this show. He's like Niles from Frasier. Yeah, Frasier's brother. He reminds me of David Hyde Pierce. Like, and he's like drinking his tea as he's reading through the codex, and then the earthquake happens, and he's like always in a tizzy. He's always in a tizzy. Things are never great when you're Giles. This is my Giles voice.
It's like I had the different trajectory of like I had no attraction to him. I thought he was just like the frumpiest, grossest guy when I was like growing up. And now like my recent rewatches,
He's got
something.
Yeah, he's suave. You can see why whatever the other teacher is, like she's into it. Like she's into him.
Jenny Calendar, who's
That's a great name. I didn't know what her
this
name
show
was.
represents all of my types. You didn't get to see the episode which introduces her. She's like a witch. She practices.
She's a witch.
Yeah,
Oh,
and there's
okay,
going to
that's
be
good know.
more about that in the
Okay.
future. But yeah, she's a practicing.
Witches are cool. I'm very into witch lore too.
But, Giles is clearly upset over what he was reading. Jenny Calendar comes in because she says that she's been, like, noticing signs and says that the end is pretty seriously nigh. She can tell that, like, the apocalypse is about to happen, that kind of thing. That night, Giles is talking to Angel. Buffy overhears their conversation, and this is one of the scenes that absolutely every time makes me cry my little eyes out. She overhears that the prophecy is that the Slayer will be killed at the hands of the Master, and that's part of this whole apocalypse thing that's going on. Buffy has a well-justified crash out about it. She tries to quit to get out of the prophecy. She says, okay, if the Slayer will die, I'm not the Slayer anymore, I quit. But, they say it doesn't work like that. And she says the line, Giles, I'm 16, I don't want to die. And
Felt very heartfelt.
there's the spring fling again. The prom is about to happen.
Yeah, another dance.
Yeah, Joyce, Buffy's mom, bought her a dress that she had been looking at when, she comes in and sees that Buffy's really upset, says, like, we should just pack up and move again. Let's leave. She's trying to get out of town. Joyce thinks that it's boy trouble kind of thing, and shows her, nobody asked you to the prom? Well, check this out. I bought you a dress. Sarah Michelle Gellar actually wound up hanging on to that dress. Did you see this? That she did an Instagram post in 2020 of just like all dressed
Nice
up.
looking dress. It's like a white gown. It's casual looking. It's got straps, and yeah. And she's gonna wear this while she slays all the vampires.
She goes
I
ahead and
love
puts
that.
it on, then goes and talks to Willow. Willow, again, this scene makes me cry. Call me really like in touch with my emotions and really considerate of other people's perspectives.
This is what gives them that approachable handsomeness that Max was talking about in the last episode.
I love the way you put that, Maxine. And then she realizes in talking to Willow, like, okay, this is the reason that I can't quit. I have to do it. I have to.
What does Willow say?
What she says, the line that really gets me is the way she delivers the, I saw what they did in there. This isn't our world anymore. They've made it theirs and they had fun. How horrifying that is. The idea of like, because there's so much like, they get so cavalier with human life at certain times in this show specifically. But then that scene's just like that.
I actually noted that line as well. It's not our world anymore. And I thought it very much, this whole episode was about the loss of innocence. Even like in that scene, there's that like, I mean, this is a little bit too on the nose for what I like, but there's the cartoons playing on the television, and then there's the bloody handprint.
Yeah.
The loss of innocence.
Yeah.
Just really visually symbolized. They hang on that shot for a while.
Yeah.
Didn't make me cry, but I'm not as into my emotions as you are.
Yeah, no, like TV movies almost like never make me cry. But this show, I think just because watching it as a kid or whatever, but I think the performances are so good, it always gets me.
Lots of murder, and so Buffy must now go and face her fate.
Meanwhile, Giles is strategizing. He's talking to Jenny. He's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go have to do it. Okay, Buffy's gone. I understand he doesn't want her to do this either. He's really wrestling with the fact that his, new friend who he really cares about, his mentee, is going to die. So he's like, okay, I'll buck up and I'll go do it. Buffy walks in and says like, no, actually, I'm going to do it. Sorry. And he's like, no, you know what? I won't let you. And she does the movie or the TV and movie thing of punching him one time in the cheek and he has a concussion.
You can do that. If you hit somebody on the button, they're done.
You've done that?
Well, I've never knocked somebody out like that, but I've seen it happen. It doesn't take much. It just takes the right, like...
Can I try on you?
No. It, like, hits your jaw together. Your mouth has to be a little open. That's why you wear mouth guards. But, like, you can do that, and then it just kind of, like, puts people unconscious. Yeah. But she doesn't hit him there. She hits him much more up in, like, the cheekbone. But, hey, it's television. It's the 90s. I can't wait till they throw... I'm sure they've already had, but, like, the line, it's the 90s. Well,
oh, yeah, it's commuter age, it's the 90s or something like that?
Yeah. We should bring back it's the 20s. Come on, man, it's the 20s. That we're out of that awkward, like, first 20 years of a new century where it's like, what is it, the aughts? That sounds stupid. Yeah.
Oh, I love the line that Buffy has to Jenny when he wakes up. Tell him something cool and tell him I said it. I love that shit. Can't think of anything. She goes to fight the master. That's when the anointed one is there. And she's like, I need help me. And she's like, save it. Just take me to him.
Yeah.
Like, I know what we're doing here.
It's like, wow, is this character really that useless?
That's when Xander goes to confront Angel, who I thought this was weird that Angel is very reluctant to go fight the master. Like, he doesn't want to, and it's not really explained. So Xander makes Angel, like, holds up a cross to him and says, we're going to save Buffy. Meanwhile, Buffy is confronting the master. The master, is moving around really fast, and she can't hit him, and then bites her neck, sucks some blood, drops her into a pool of water, face down. She, effectively dies. That's when, the master can finally, with the power of the blood of the Slayer having been consumed, he can break his binds that are keeping him in that little cave, and he goes out to wreak havoc.
By the way, we just have to quickly say, I love the, like, bubble visual effect they would do to show his cage throughout the season. He's in, like, a bubble you can't see until the master touches it, and then it gives it this weird billowing effect.
I love the effects. Or you can tell they like made it in After Effects or something.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, but like 90s After Effects where it's just like not.
The production note is like, okay, we'll get a shot of him holding his hand up and we'll do something.
Yeah, and it looks bad. This is what makes, like, great visual effects so good, because, like, they can be timeless. Like Jaws and Jurassic Park, you still watch them now and they still look great. You watch something like this, or the Power Rangers. This show kind of is like in the same bucket as like the Power Rangers for me.
But it's fun.
It's fun. And in the 90s, it was super fun because they were low budget productions and they had very little technology. And so, yeah, the master's in like a bubble and he breaks out of the bubble. And then there's that big flashbang effect, which also looks bad. But it's okay because the whole thing, honestly, is fairly on point. The makeup's not great either.
And he also has a really bad, mouthful of plastic voice.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be this big scary guy.
But he does have a great line when he throws her after biting her and he throws her into the little pool of water. He goes, by the way, love the dress. Yep. Like very Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs. And yeah, they all compliment Buffy's dress throughout the entire episode. Then this is where the master was funny and like he has that, like every once in a while he'll make like a side comment like he's Jim Carrey from The Grinch. And they're usually pretty funny.
Which is one of those Joss Whedon things of what if like someone who's supposed to be big and intimidating is actually just kind of having fun with it. Yeah. And I love it here. It gets played to death by like him as a writer and like all the Avengers stuff like that. It's like, oh, I can't stand it. It's just so pervasive now.
Yeah. How's this episode wrap up?
Then, Xander and Angel come in. Xander has to resuscitate because Angel doesn't have breath, so he can't do CPR. She comes back. She's feeling stronger than ever. She did technically die and fulfill the prophecy. Then she, also came back and is still alive. And then she goes and meanwhile, in the library, a giant tentacle monster who was supposed to be CGI, but then at the end they realized they couldn't afford it. So it wound up being a puppet with a bunch of individual dudes. I think that kind of thing is timeless. Like it's all slimy and intimidating and gross. Anyway, that's supposed to be, monster from the Hellmouth, big demon. Buffy confronts the master on the rooftop. She, is super powerful now from having come back or whatever. I don't know. And then she kills him by picking him up and throwing him into the library, dies on a stake. And he was load bearing because that caused all of the vampires that were surrounding the school to just disappear.
When the master's killed in a vampire thing, then all of the other vampires are killed.
That's what happened in, oh, wait, no, I don't want to spoil a movie centers.
I think he just like did.
Yeah,
well, I mean, but that's like lore. It happens in like every main vampire movie because there become too many vampires. So you kill the master and the rest of them die.
Yeah, but what about the tentacle monster? Is that part of the vampire?
I don't know. He retracts once the master's killed.
I call it load-bearing boss. But yeah, like you said, notably, it's inconsistent what happens when a vampire gets staked. His bones are still there, and that's gonna... no, that doesn't matter to you at all.
No, but it does look really, really bad. It looks like they went to the Halloween store and found a skeleton.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, yeah, the set direction. There's also a scene, I think this is in the pilot, where they like drive a car through a building and you could just see the like foam board that they use for the wall that's supposed to be like the brick school.
Yes. There's a whole subplot that runs through the season of Cordelia getting her driver's license, and that's you didn't get to see, but that was...
I need more Cordelia, as I can put in a request for future episodes.
Okay.
I like Cordelia. I think she has a lot of great one-liners.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll let you get into your opinions on all this, Max. But
Please.
I would say
Max, not Josh. Max.
No, she's good. She's good.
the Master was one character. Had they known they were going for more, I thought he was a really interesting character, entertaining. I found him entertaining.
Yeah.
I liked his little one-liners. I liked that he had this child that he was hanging out with. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to see more of the Master, and I was bummed. Also, they all just go to the dance at the end. They're like, okay, well, we can go to the dance. Might as well celebrate.
Yeah. You'll find, like, moving on to other seasons is that everyone has, like, really quick one-liners. So no matter what villain is going to be shown, they're always going to have, like, some great one-liners.
I am interested in seeing like what they do with the different villains because that would be fun.
Yeah.
You get to play with a new villain every time. And
There's
you're like,
some
well,
good
this one
ones.
will be like a girl, and this
Yeah.
one will be like really mean, and this one will be like fun, and this one will be her mom, and like you could do all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on with the biting? Because there's all sorts of different ways that the vampires can like bite you, and they don't seem to explain the rules at all. So you have sometimes they bite you and you just become a corpse. Sometimes they bite you and you become a vampire. Sometimes they bite you and you don't become a vampire. Like Joyce. Joyce gets bitten by Darla in the Angel episode, and then Buffy gets bit by the Master, and they both don't become vampires. They're just like, oh, they just got bit a little.
You know what I think? Whatever advances the plot.
No, no, she says in the first episode, because the opening scene of the guy getting bit by Darla,
Yeah.
and then when Buffy talks to Giles, like, I know that a kid died from a vampire, Giles is like, will he come back? And she's like, no, you have to drink the blood of the vampire that bit you to become a vampire. And they're consistent about that.
Okay.
You just,
What about with Buffy though? Like that to me was like this weird unexplained hole in the finale. And I was like, wait a second. So he bites her and then they like give her CPR, which isn't really consistent. And I don't know, like, and now she's alive and she's like, is she a vampire or not? Because now she's like, she feels different. And then she says, I know where the Master is. And then this is when I noticed the super strength when she like suplexes the Master again, like 6'2" man and this like 5'1" like teenage girl just throws him through the plate glass window. A lot of glass breaking. It's always a nice little special effect.
Yeah.
And then she kills him. I was like, wait, is she a vampire now too?
no.
Buffy will always just be insanely strong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She is in the first episode. She like breaks a door off the hinges,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Again, she throws Angel out a window. Okay, the Master and Angel have to be like the same weight, right?
Yeah, the Master
Yeah.
seems like a pretty big guy.
It is established that vampires, too, also have super strength.
Yes. But that was the thing. I was like, wait, is she a vampire now? And they don't seem to like touch on that at all.
There's no explanation.
All right. Well,
She's also definitely different, and well, I think season 2 gets more into that.
I'm excited to see where we go from here. I'm glad we're done with season 1.
Yeah.
You know, season 1 of an 8 show usually is just finding yourself, figuring out Cordelia's good. Like, she's really funny. And this Xander, like, romance thing needs to die, and I hope it does. I hope this doesn't become, like, much more of a thing. Oh, getting back to the Willow scene, though, about where I
Yes.
thought this is a really good example of how women should. So, yeah, so when after Xander gets rejected by Buffy, he's, like, lamenting to Willow, and then he goes, hey, we should go together. And then she says no, despite being in love with him and really wanting his affections. She has enough self-confidence to say, no, I will not go when you're wishing you could be with her. And I really thought that was good. I was like, yes, this is a good example to set for young women. Like, don't be someone's second choice.
I love the character of Willow so much. I think she's one of my favorite characters ever.
Really?
So I think, you know, watching her say no like that and standing up for herself was so good. I also
Yeah.
hate Xander.
Yeah.
Again. But also, like, why would you want to go with someone who he's not even looking at her as like a romantic partner? He's just like, let's get back at Buffy
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, not a very respectful thing.
No.
So Allison Yang, and she delivers sort of the viewpoint of the show a lot of times, it seems.
Yeah.
Like that was an important moment. The loss of innocence, this isn't our world anymore. Having to do things you don't want to do because it's your responsibility. Like there's a lot of good scenes about Buffy growing up and trying to like actually accept who she is,
Yeah.
despite the world not being how she wants it.
Yeah.
That's the deeper theme I got from this, and that was nice.
We were talking about like loss of innocence, and I think when we were talking about the first episode, you were talking about how like they're much high schoolers or campy. It's like, you know, kind of more innocent than we see in the last episode. Through that arc, do you think you miss anything in between that? Because it feels like we went first to last, this huge like character arc between like growing up in general.
I think when you're looking at only a small subsection of the overall work, you have to be looking at it for either small themes of each individual episode, or was there a specific type of arc that you were going for with the characters in the 3 episodes that you picked? And I think this was just more of an examination of the perspective of a young teenage person. And I think, with Angel, like that deep romance and the yearning, all of that felt very real as a teenager. And then the recognition you don't get to have what you want, but you should still stand up for what you believe in, and you should still do the thing that you feel is your obligation. That's a good perspective of what teenage years can be like. So I picked that up. I miss a lot of the deeper character developments. And that's why I think talking about the show after you've only seen 3 episodes is good. And that's what this whole thing's intended to do, is to allow for dialogue about the media pieces that are too big to consume that other people have seen. So I thought you did a great job. Season 1, good stuff.
This is our first set of episodes we've ever given you.
Yeah, and this is the first machete order that I've experienced. And
how's it feel to not be in the host seat anymore?
It feels good. I like just kind of getting like a slice of this. Like, this is the perspective of machete orders. So I'm looking forward to what else you guys have in store.
Yeah, we have 3 more for you.
All right.
Are you ready for this?
I'll start.
Okay.
Next episode you're going to be watching is Season 2, Episode 3, School Heart.
And then we're going to move on to Season 2, Episode 6, Halloween. We're going to close it off for this session with Season 2, Episode 7.
Whoa.
So these ones are a little closer together.
Yes.
So you're not going to get a full season this time.
2, 6, 7. No, 3, 6.
3, 6, 7. I think Season 2 is great, and I think it really starts to pick up from here.
Okay.
So if you like Season 1, that's kind of just like, full story of that whole season. But I think Season 2, they know they're not going to get canceled this time.
Okay.
I threatened last time that we would be skipping a lot of Monster of the Week stuff, like filler episode kind of stuff, and that's really why we ended up with only 3 episodes in the first season. Everything else is fun, but this is when we were getting into the stuff that we really want to tell.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see you next week.
All right. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Machete Order. Join us on all the socials: TikTok, Instagram, X.
We're not on there. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Special thanks to our social media producer, Nicole Cammett.
And thanks to Brother Sal for the use of his song, I Will Tell. This was a Rotary Studios production.